My name is Jack. I'm 29 years old, and this is the Christmas that ended the way my family ever celebrated the holiday again. Or maybe I should say, ever could. It was the first time in 4 years that all of us were together again. Snow had been falling since morning, the cold was sharp enough to sting the lungs, and my parents' old wooden house by the frozen lake felt warm and safe. Safe in that familiar, comforting Christmas way. Inside the house, everything smelled like hot cocoa, oranges, and cinnamon. The Christmas tree stood in the center of the living room, glowing with soft yellow lights that blinked slowly every few seconds. It was almost midnight. Our yearly tradition: open the gifts together. Mom sat next to the tree. Dad was filming everything on his old camcorder. My 15-year-old sister Catherine was tearing the wrapping paper off the gift for her doll. Everything was completely normal until my eyes landed on a box I didn't recognize. We usually put a few extra joke gifts under the tree every year, so at first I assumed it was one of those. But this one was different. Dark red wrapping paper, a golden ribbon, no tag, no name, old-fashioned patterns, as if it had been wrapped decades ago. "Is this from any of you?" I asked. Mom shook her head. Dad started to say he might have bought it by accident, then stopped mid-sentence and quietly whispered, "No, I didn't." And Catherine said it didn't match any of our styles. The room went silent. The tree lights blinked twice. Wind pressed against the windows. Dad finally said, "Just open it. Maybe one of us is joking." So I lifted the lid. A strange silence filled the house. Even the fireplace seemed to stop crackling. Inside was a small blue toy car, one of those that toddlers pull around with a string, and I recognized it instantly. It belonged to Noah, our little cousin who drowned 15 years ago. His toy had disappeared the day we lost him, lost near the lake and never found again. Mom covered her mouth. Dad whispered, "This isn't funny." But none of us were laughing. Catherine picked up the box, sniffed the air, and said, "This smells like wet soil, like something that was buried." We didn't know what to say. Midnight passed. Before we could even decide what to do next, 2 more boxes appeared under the tree. Not in front of us. No, they showed up while we were in the kitchen for barely half a minute. 2 new gifts. We opened them. The second box held my grandmother's green cloth journal, buried with her 10 years ago. Its pages were damp, covered in faint, muddy fingerprints. The third box contained my father's old pocket knife, the one he lost 20 years ago in the forest. The blade was rusty, yet somehow smeared with something dark. Catherine started shaking. She whispered, "These gifts, they're coming from the past, from places nothing should come back from." Dad insisted someone must have broken in trying to scare us, but the doors were locked. The cameras outside showed nothing. There were no footprints in the snow, and most importantly, no one can dig something out of a grave and leave no trace. Around 2 a.m., Mom said we should stop and figure things out in the morning. But before she finished her sentence, the tree lights blinked 3 times, fast. And then a new gift appeared, larger, silver wrapping paper, and one word written in a strange, shaky handwriting. "Catherine." She backed away. "I'm not opening that." Dad placed his hand on hers, gently lifted the lid. Inside was a key. The key to our front door? Soaking wet, covered in mud, snowflakes melting on its surface, fresh snow. Not old. Mom whispered, "That means someone used this key outside a few minutes ago." Dad rushed to the entrance. There were muddy marks on the wooden steps leading to the porch, but they stopped abruptly, as if whoever stood there simply vanished. We locked ourselves in the bedroom, planning to stay awake. But it didn't matter. At exactly 3:47 a.m., the sound of crumpling paper came from the living room. Dad grabbed his camera. We opened the door. The tree lights were off. And beneath the tree, 4 new gifts. The wrapping was dirty, torn, ribbons shredded, and on one of them, fresh fingerprints made of damp earth. Catherine burst into tears. Mom said, "We're leaving, now." We ran to the car, windows frozen over, snowstorm raging, but we drove into the night and didn't look back. 2 days later, Dad reviewed the security footage, and what he found, I still can't rewatch. Between 2 and 3 a.m., the Christmas tree swayed gently. Its lights pulsed like heartbeat. Then at 3:47, a bent figure slid through the front door, not walking, not crawling, being dragged. Its arms were too long. Its movements made the sound of tearing paper. It placed the gifts under the tree, then leaned right into the camera and whispered, "Gifts always return, especially the ones taken from the ground." We never went back. But months later, the new owner of the house called and said, "I found some boxes in the storage room. One has your name on it. Should I bring it to you?" I begged him not to open anything, but right before he hung up, I heard a faint jingle behind him, the same bell that hung from Noah's toy car. And I knew our story wasn't over.